Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Canada once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. So I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last little while. They are still a relatively new addition to their local beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves. If people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but I have heard they do a few other different styles of beer pretty well too, although I'm yet to come across any of those here in Hong Kong, so fingers crossed for the future. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery before. It's also a sub-style that I've had from this brewery once or twice, but one that I know they can do very well. I've heard very good things about this particular beer, and it's also one of their latest releases through their importer here in Hong Kong as well. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head over to Canada like I said. We're going to go to the province of Ontario, we're going to go to the kind of Toronto area, but out to the west of the city a little bit to a place called Milton, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Third Moon Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Triple Bloodbath. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, this is yet another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Gur Beer in the One Mall in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. They always get a good selection of beers from Third Moon and some of the other Canadian breweries as well, but we have actually had one or two New England triples from these guys before. But yeah, when it comes to the New England hazy style umbrella generally, this brewery is one of the Canadian ones that you do really need to check out. They're doing some very good stuff at the moment. But yeah, this one just kind of caught my eye because of the name and for the fact that I know the brewery are very good in this particular style category, so I thought, you know, why not? But we've had doubles, triples, quadruples and quintuple New England hazies from these guys, and they've always been pretty damn interesting. But yeah, I just like the name of this one, and I thought, you know, why not? Let's do it. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go on. A 10.5% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario over in Canada. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Third Moon Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Canadian playlist along with a number of other things that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. But yeah, hopefully we can add to that with even more breweries over the next little while. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Third Moon Brewing Company once again then. So, as I mentioned to you earlier in the video, Third Moon Brewing Company are based in Milton in Ontario, which is to the west of Toronto, and the company was founded by Steve Bibo Piloto and Chris Steininger. So Bibo is originally from Chicago in Illinois down in the US, which we know is a very good beer city, and he moved to Montreal to study, and then he went on to Ontario shortly after this, after he graduated. And he actually studied communications and finance and then worked in investment and trade for a number of years. Chris, though, originally studied maths and computing science, and he comes from a background in IT and product management. But the guys were both big beer enthusiasts, and they apparently met through a mutual friend's Untappd meetup, and they just sat opposite each other and nerded out on beer for the whole evening. And this was apparently where their friendship was born. But they both tried to, get beers from different breweries across the world that were kind of famous, if you like. They wanted to get all the whale beers, but Bibo was already an avid home brewer, and he really wanted to kind of brew the types of beers that he wanted to drink himself, and so the two of them used to brew together a little bit. But they announced in the summer of 2019 that they were going to found their own brewery. It opened in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic, which was obviously a bit of a difficult time for them. But since their foundation, they've added Jim Fay and Cole Firth to the brewing team, while Melissa Steininger also came in to take care of the operations and maintenance. And she is basically the brewery engineer, from what I understand. But once the COVID restrictions were lifted, they opened up the tap room at the brewery, which has done very, very well. And they've been gradually updating the fermentation capacity and the infrastructure of the brewery over the last few years as well. But as of September 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 380 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I mentioned to you earlier, these guys are probably best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Third Moon Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just bring that up and let you have a wee look at the camera. There you can see the Third Moon Brewing Company symbol there, which is always very nice. You can see this one, the artwork is a little bit different compared to the more colourful stuff that we've seen from Third Moon before. But as you can see, this one is called Triple Bloodbath. They do have Double Bloodbath and the regular Bloodbath IPA as well. What I understand, all of their kind of names are a little bit heavy metal, black metal, and I think that's one of the things that really appeals about this brewery's artwork to me. But yeah, plain silver top on the can there. This one is 440 millilitres, which is in fact, no, sorry, I'm telling you lies, it's a 473 millilitre can, which is 1 American pint. And this one is 10.5% ABV, a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's hopped with Citra and Mosaic, both of which are American hops, both 14% alpha acid. Citra is going to give you that lovely kind of big juicy sort of mango character, quite a little bit of a limey note as well in a New England Hazy IPA. Mosaic is going to give you a wee bit of earthiness, but mainly a kind of big juicy tangerine type note. But yeah, kind of a classic mixture in this one, and as we know, Third Moon Brewing are very good when it comes to the hazy IPAs. So I do have quite a little bit of confidence in this particular brewery when it comes to this style. So let's get it out into the glass then and see how we go. The Triple Bloodbath, this should be very, very nice. So let's do this. That does look pretty damn good actually. So there we go. That's maybe about 80% of the beer out and into the glass. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. I will say that on the camera it's appearing a little bit paler to you guys than it actually is to the naked eye. But before the head disappears on this one, we can see that it's poured with maybe a 3/4 finger of a frothy, kind of cream coloured head there. 1 or 2 medium-sized bubbles sitting on the surface of the liquid there, and a few smaller ones just as you go sort of further up in this one. But yeah, the head on that actually looks very nice. I would say more kind of cream coloured than perfect white. But yeah, it looks very, very nice, this beer. In terms of the colour of this one, I would describe it as being like a kind of mango juice type colour. Obviously to you guys on the camera, it's a good little bit paler than it actually is to the naked eye, but I do like comparing New England IPA's appearance to different fruit juices. It's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs, in all honesty. But yeah, the level of haze in this one for a 10.5% triple, it's alright. It's kind of in line with what you would expect. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England hazies that I've come across. But remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use, and that varies from brewery to brewery and even beer to beer. But not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one. One or two bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a few little ones coming up toward the bottom of the head there, but the head has just faded away to be a kind of more thin foamy layer, and to have that kind of thicker foamy ring around the edge of the glass there. But all in all, it does look really quite nice, this one. So yeah, pretty much what you would expect in terms of appearance from the New England hazy IPA style. But yeah, nothing overly surprising about this one. We've seen this before from Third Moon Brewing Company. So I think we can move on then and have a wee look at the aroma of this one. And I have to say, I'm quite curious to see what it's going to have in store for us, because I have heard that this one is pretty damn good. Ooh, that's interesting. I will say, this smells a little bit different from the other Third Moons that we've had in recent times. This one feels a little bit more kind of old school, almost, actually. I think quite a few of the Third Moons I've had in recent times have been on the sweeter end of the spectrum, but this one smells as if it's going to be just that little bit more old school in a way. Yeah, lovely big malty backbone to this one, as you would expect. Bit of dryness to it as well. Nice big kind of bright green component, and lots of lovely fruity character as well. So yeah, it smells a little bit classic, this one. It might just be due to the presence of the kind of citron mosaic. It might be reminding me a wee bit of the likes of you know, some of the Stigbergets New England hazies that I first encountered. But yeah, this one does smell really pretty damn good. So yeah, for me, great smelling beer, this. Yeah, let's just try and break that down a wee bit and describe it for you more in depth. So as I've often said in my reviews, for me, when it comes to New England hazies, there are 6 different elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of the beer. So yeah, for me, you get the kind of farmhousey yeasty type character, the rye leaning grainy side of things. Those are a little bit more common in the New England brewed and New England IPAs. You know, as the style has evolved, it's gone on to a slightly different thing. So the newer, well, the non-New England varieties of the style have gone a little bit more toward wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and the sweeter side of things. The original New England IPA was more of a kind of farmhouse IPA. But this particular beer, and you know, Third Moon in general, I've always found that they lean a little bit more toward the yeasty and the wheaty part of the New England IPA spectrum. For me, this one's actually quite well balanced, and I think it's a wee bit more oaty leaning as well. But yeah, a bit more oaty, a bit more barley malt leaning, and as I say, a little bit more kind of yeasty, but aroma wise, it's really pretty damn nice, actually. Yeah, this is quite different. Certainly not quite as sweet, but we have to remember the last beer I tried from these guys was the Quintuple Continuous Blood, and then before that we had the Haunted Quad, if I'm not mistaken, and both of those would obviously have quite a bit of brew sugar in them to take the ABV up. This one might be a little bit more kind of raw and straightforward. But yeah, we can break the aroma of this one down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you absolutely have a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust in the backbone there. There's a little bit of woodiness. So yeah, nice little bit of woodiness in there. Wee bit of kind of Jacob's cream cracker. As well, so yeah, white, you know, hedgehog, white bready bread crust in there, a little bit of woodiness. Jacob's cream cracker, of course. Above that, you've got a nice little bit of woodiness to the beer. So yeah, I like the woodiness that this one has, actually. That becomes a little bit more prominent. But above that, there's a tiny little hint of like cracker, as I said, then a wee hint of like, you know, more homey or brown bready sort of character. And then yeah, you've got that fluffier white bready note coming out of this one. So yeah, fluffy white bread in this one. Actually smells slightly sweeter the more that you smell of the beer too. And above that, you get a more dense white bready, wheaty character coming out of the beer too. So yeah, a more dense wheaty note out of this one. A little bit bitier further back on the nose too, I would hasten to add. But yeah, that more dense wheaty white bready character in this one is really, really nice. On top of that, you've got a good little bit of oatiness as well. And the oats are quite interesting. As I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, the oats are often a fairly decent indicator of how fresh your IPA is, because essentially the fresher the beer is, the creamier the oats are, the older it is, the drier and things they are. But the oaty side of this beer is really nice and creamy, and that goes to show how fresh Hops Express are bringing these beers into to Hong Kong, so thumbs up to them as well. But yeah, lovely kind of creamy oaty character coming out of this one, which is lovely. Gives you a little bit of dryness at the same time though. There's a little touch of that Skittlesy note in this one, which can come from the yeast, but also a little bit from brew sugar. So there's maybe a little touch of brew sugar in this one, but we'll just need to see. But you've also got a little touch of like a very slight Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch to this beer, and a wee hint of biscuity note too. But at 10.5% ABV, you would expect that little touch of kind of brown sugary character to be in the beer because of its ABV. Other than that, I don't know if there's really much to say about the malty side of it. In terms of the yeasty side of the beer, at the back of the nose, at the back of the nose, you've got a really nice kind of at the back of the nose, you've got a really nice kind of brown bready, the yeasty character's got a little touch of brown bread to it, but mainly it's a kind of like farmhousey, rustic, crackery white bread for me. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things. So you need to remember there are three types of hoppings with IPAs. So you've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's responsible for the majority of your bitterness, and it gives you that deep, dank green component. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil. Gives you a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma, and a very bright green component too. And then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. That is all flavour and aroma, and again it gives you a very bright green component. So yeah, that's worth bearing in mind. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more kind of juicy and bright, if you like. West Coast IPAs use all three, which is why they have that kind of deeper and more dank component to them. So the way that all of that goes together, I think is really, really nice. For this one, it's got that really nice bright green component and the soft juiciness as well. This really does remind me of some of the more old school New England IPAs. That's why I'm saying it's just a bit nostalgic for me, this beer. Maybe that's why it kind of strikes a chord with the brain, if you like. But the green component in this one, for sure, there's a teeny little bit of earthiness to it, but it mainly leans toward that kind of brighter floral aromaticity. There's a good little bit of a more zesty kind of grassiness to the beer as well, which I do really like. And I don't know if there's much else we can really say about the green component other than that it's a little bit wet and a little bit sort of leafy in a sense. So the way that goes together, I think is really, really nice in this one. But on the fruity side of things then, for me, it's kind of what you'd expect if you know the Mosaic and Citra hops. I mean, you've got a little bit of that sharper peachy sort of thing from the Citra. A little bit of sharper peachy note out of this one. You've got a wee bit of I don't know if I'd say grapefruit in this one, but yeah, you've got peach in there, lovely big ripe juicy mango, the softer apricots in there, the passion fruits there as well. I don't know if I'd say pineapple right enough, but then there's a good little bit of kind of tangerine juicy orange coming out of the beer. But yeah, as I say, all of these things are very familiar, and again, maybe that combination of Citra and Mosaic is what makes this beer feel quite nostalgic to me, because Stigbergets and Opigårds and these kind of breweries in Sweden very often used to use these things. So the way all of this goes together is very, very nice. As I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but I think it is about time to taste this one and see what it's all about. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. This one is the Triple Bloodbath, a 10.5% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario, over in Canada. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's really nice. That is very good. Yeah, I think what I was saying about this one being a little bit more kind of raw and old school is absolutely right. I'll say it does lean a bit more toward the wheaty side of things in the beginning, but it shows you a more oaty character into the aftertaste too, and I wasn't quite expecting it to turn out that way in a sense. But yeah, like I say, this is a more kind of raw and old school New England IPA than some of the other ones I've had from them in recent times. It doesn't have too much of that Skittlesy flavour from the yeast and the brew sugar interacting. So yeah, this one just strikes a bit more of a chord with me, in all honesty. But yeah, the way that one goes together is really nice. So yeah, big thumbs up to Third Moon for this one, for the Triple Bloodbath. That's lovely. So yeah, proper, more old school beer, this one, but it is very fresh. You can actually still feel a little bit of the kind of hop burn on this one, which is kind of interesting. But it didn't say whether this one was using cryo or anything like that. Maybe this one is using the more old school pellets, right enough. It doesn't seem quite as smooth as some of the other ones that I've had from Third Moon before. But yeah, still lovely beer, this one. More of it shows you more wheaty character, as I said. Gives you the nice big juicy fruitiness, and it's got a wee touch more bitterness to it as well than I thought it was going to have. But yeah, it's good stuff. So let's just break this one down then and describe it for you more in depth, as we always do. Middle third of your palate then. Backbone of the beer. Yeah, so the backbone of the beer for me, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in this one. And it is like a kind of white hedgehog roll sort of thing. As you move further forward on that, middle third of your palate, you can feel there's a little touch of woodiness just coming out of this one, which I think is really quite nice. And that lingers there into the aftertaste. So you've got the fresh white bready bread crust in there. Then you've got a wee bit more, as I say, you've got that little bit more woodiness coming out of this one. And on top of that, there's a little touch of like Jacob's cream cracker in there. And I will say the beer does get a little bit drier into the aftertaste too. But yeah, on top of that cracker, there's a very light layer of like a kind of slightly sweet wholemeal brown bready character. So you can just feel that sitting on top of the you can just feel that sitting on top of the kind of crackery layer there. But then above that, yeah, you get the white bready part of the beer coming out, which is quite interesting. So the white bready side of things is actually slightly sweet in a sense, but still quite light and airy, and it has a wee touch of like dryness to it as well. And yeah, above that you've got some really nice you've got some really nice more dense wheaty bready character out of this one. So the wheat is a little bit smoother further forward on the palate. It's a little bit more, it's a little bit more kind of wheaty and bitey, I think, on the like further back on the palate. As I often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, the wheaty note in this one's actually got that little bit more bite to it, and that's interesting because usually North American wheat is a little bit smoother than say European wheat, which is a little bit more bitey. There could be a wee touch of like Pilsner malt or something in this particular beer as well, you never know. But yeah, the wheaty layer at the back of that middle third of your palate, it certainly has a little bit more kind of bite to it, if you like. But on top of the more dense wheaty white bready layer, you've got the oaty character coming out of this one. So yeah, as you go down the middle line of your palate there, it's got this lovely oaty creaminess to it, which I think is great. So yeah, lovely sort of oaty creaminess to this beer right down the middle line of your tongue, and you can feel that the oats stay creamy just until you reach the very edges of that middle third of your palate, and they get that little bit kind of drier as well. But then in the middle of your palate, you've got that little circle there where you get the kind of, where you get a little bit of a like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing coming out of it, and a wee bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing coming out of the beer too. So yeah, the way that goes together is pretty nice actually. But yeah, lovely kind of, as I say, with that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing on the biscuity side of the beer. It kind of lingers there into the aftertaste, but yeah, you've got a wee bit of bite to this one from the kind of wheaty side of it as well, which is interesting. Yeah, interesting stuff actually. I noticed that little bit of bite in the quintuple continuous blood that I had as well. But yeah, I think we've said everything we really need to about the middle third of the palate, other than that maybe into the aftertaste you get a very slight kind of Skittles type flavour out of this beer too. So yeah, anyway, let's leave the middle third of the palate and go on to the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So you've got a wee bit of brown bread in the base, a kind of white bready note in the middle, then the more wheaty, bitey, dense, Pilsner malty type quality sitting above that. But the base of that, the base of that back third of your palate, it has a really nice, it has a little bit more of a kind of grainy part to it. There's a little bit more of a kind of grainy side to the bread crusty character in there. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker sitting above that, then the brown bready side of things, that layer is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy, but a wee bit drier. Then you've got the white bready layer sitting above that, which again is a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and drier. Then you've got the wheaty side of things sitting above that, and it really does have a little bit of bite and a bit of dryness to it. And above all of that on the back third of your palate, it's all about the kind of yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at that yeastiness then. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's at its core, it's got a little bit of a kind of sweeter brown bread to it, but then it's surrounded by, it's got a more kind of brown bready character in the middle, then it's surrounded by this slightly sweeter white bready character, then the edge of that is a more kind of, like white bready bread crust. There's a wee bit of a sort of crackery dryness to it as well. So the yeasty side of this beer on the back third of the palate is really quite nice too. So that gets a thumbs up from me. I do like how all of that kind of pieces together actually. It's interesting stuff from that perspective. So back third of the palate for me, it gives you a wee bit of dryness. The yeasty side of the beer gives you a little bit of dryness into the aftertaste and more of that crackery sort of thing. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But the way that all of that goes together is really, really nice in this one. I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of this beer. Definitely a slightly drier and more wheaty leaning New England IPA, but it does show you a little bit further into the aftertaste. It does show you a wee bit more of its oaty kind of smoothness and a wee touch of sweetness, if you like. But yeah, the hoppy side of things, for me, the green component, I think there's more pellet in this one because it does show you that wee bit of bitterness. In the back corners of the palate, there's definitely that little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it shows you a wee touch of herbal character, but then underneath all of that, there's a little bit of kind of pine resin in there, and as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, it's got a little bit more kind of floral aromaticity and yeah, a little bit of spiciness too almost, which is quite interesting. So yeah, the floral aromaticity in there is nice, and then around the front curve of the palate, the beer, it really shows you a little bit more it shows you a little bit more sort of grassiness, and it shows you a little bit more kind of grassiness and a wee bit of zestiness too, which is really interesting. So yeah, there is a little bit of that floral aromatic spice there just on the front corners of the palate, and as I say, you get a wee bit of bitterness out of this one, which makes me think there's maybe a wee touch of whirlpool hopping going on in here. But yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, definitely lighter, grassy, and more zesty. But let's focus on that front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer, just to round off the flavour section of the video. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, so you can feel the brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, and then a wee bit of the wheaty thing on top. But yeah, the base of that, front third of your palate, it's more it's more like a kind of, you've got that bread crusty character in there, the cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and you can feel the kind of smoother side of the wheat and a bit of the creamy oats in there. But then above that, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's focus on the fruity side of things for the moment. So yeah, the fruity side of the beer for me is, I would say, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do have a little touch of the grapefruit there, and that's the citra that's going to give you that. So you can feel that wee bit of stronger grapefruit there, but as you move further forward, you get the nice juicy but slightly sharper peach on top, and then underneath that, it's all about the kind of very ripe, juicy mango. And as you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got the kind of soft apricot and passion fruit underneath, and then a juicy pineapple on top. And as you move into the front half of the front third of your palate, it's all about that, it really is all about that kind of tangerine orangey character from the mosaic. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together in this beer for me is really quite interesting. But yeah, it's a good beer, this one. As I say, a little bit more kind of nostalgic, and then I would actually say just behind the front tip of the tongue, you've got a wee bit of a lemon limey character, which again is going to be the citra that will give you that. But all in all, I think the way that this beer goes about its business is pretty damn good, and like I say, pretty nostalgic for me. So yeah, the more that I drink of it, the more it's a kind of wheaty, bitey, sort of dry New England IPA in a sense. But I've not had one like this in quite a wee while, and as I say, it's a lot less sweet than the other Third Moons that I've had in recent times too. So a nice little bit of change of pace, but a very, very good beer, and I'm pretty damn happy with it. So yeah, let's just round off this review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, I'd say this beer is kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Yeah, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a lovely big creamy mouthfeel to it. Very slight oiliness, but yeah, mostly a kind of thick, creamy sort of mouthfeel. The hoppy side of this one, I would say, is the bitterness, maybe 50 or 60 IBUs. It does have a wee bit of lingering bitterness there on the sides of the palate, like I said, and that nice floral aromaticity. So yeah, nice little bit of hoppy bitterness in there. The malty character, a little bit dry underneath, smoother in the middle, and then a wee bit kind of creamier and slightly sweet on top, but as I say, very slightly sweet. And the fruity side of this one, really soft and really juicy. Quite well balanced between the tropical side of things and the more sort of citrusy side of it as well. But yeah, all in all, fruity side of this beer I think is very nice. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, very happy with this one. As I say, a bit nostalgic for me. So a good beer, this one. A good, more old school New England IPA, I would say, from Third Moon Brewing. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Third Moon Brewing Company as well. But this one was the triple Bloodbath. I was going to say Bloodshed there. Yeah, triple Bloodbath at 10.5% ABV, a New England hazy triple with Citron Mosaic from Third Moon Brewing Company in Milton, Ontario, over in Canada. So yeah, check out my social media, check out Third Moon Brewing social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very soon. But try this one if you want an old school, more kind of wheaty, bitey leaning New England hazy IPA. Until the next time, slàinte, skål, and cheers.